Good day, and welcome to one of our Rand Swiss Weekly Wraps. I'm Viv Govender, and what we'll do as usual is go over some stories of the week that affect you and your investments going forward, as well as a little AI/tech segment at the end. Our three stories of the week are going to be as follows. Our local monetary policy committee meeting, the stuff that's happening in the Middle East around shipping, etc., and also finally doing something on China and the stimulus package. This is the monetary policy committee meeting. We had no change as expected. That's something I think that it was not exactly a big surprise coming through. I do think that in terms of what can we expect going forward, I think we are going to have several cuts this year following the US. I mean, I just looked at the most recent numbers in terms of forecast for the US. There's like a 0.1 or 0.2% chance that there won't be a cut by the middle of just after the middle of the year. In fact, there's almost a 50-50 chance we'll have a cut by the middle of the first half of the year. And once the US starts cutting, we'll start cutting, but we won't start cutting before then. We're also going to be raising in this environment as well. We had inflation come in lower than the last period, though still above that 4.5 target. It's well within the range of 3 to 6%, which is the range we're looking at. It's about 5.1, down from about 5.5. So inflation's coming down in South Africa. We're looking to cut, but we can't cut before the US does. Then we're looking at shipping. So there's been some developments happening in the Middle East. We've talked about this in the past with the Houthis, with Iran and Pakistan, with what's happening in Gaza and so on. And we've seen recent shipping numbers in terms of cargo rates increasing dramatically, 18% in the last month or so. This is very important because what I want you to imagine is if you cut off, for instance, what the Houthis are doing, cutting off the Red Sea. You can't travel through the Red Sea. So if you want to go from China to Europe, you can't go through the Suez Canal. So you've got to go all the way around towards Cape Town and then to Europe. That's the other option, basically. You can't go through the Suez Canal. You're adding about 50% to your trip. Now, imagine this. These ships are running all the time, back and forth, back and forth. Now, if they have to take 50% longer to go through a trip, they can do fewer trips. So effectively, what you're doing is you're decreasing the amount of available shipping space that there is in the world by making them take longer trips. And what it does is two things. Firstly, by reducing the amount of shipping space, you increase the cost per day of using it. And secondly, you're using more days because you're taking longer to travel. So if you increase the cost, the time taken to go from, say, Asia to Europe by 50%, not only are you increasing the price because you're reducing effectively the number of ships, the number of trips that can be taken between Asia and Europe, because now that each trip is taking a longer time, we're also increasing the price of each of these trips just because of the fact that each of these trips takes a longer time to do as well. So you'll find that on the daily basis, on the per day basis, you'll find the price going up, and the number of days the price is going up, dramatically increasing the cost of transport. It's going to affect not just Europe and China and Asia as well, but it's going to affect the whole world because there's a number of supply chains that rely on things being transported in a timely fashion from China to Europe and back and forth. Asia is still the world's factory. Europe still makes a lot of stuff that the world needs and still buys a lot of stuff the world needs as well. Rest of the world as well. So we are likely to see a dramatic, amount of pressure coming on the Houthis over the next little while in order to solve this problem. Because if we don't solve this problem, it's just going to get worse over time. It's going to encourage other smaller parties out there to try and become spoilers in any kind of conflict because it's known now that what you can do is you can put your foot down on the jugular vein of global trade and pretty much get away with it. The Houthis are a very small party. They're a very small player in the world, and there's nothing in terms of what they can do that, for instance, other players in other parts of the world can't do as well, especially if they wanted to, just cause trouble. Okay, and so that's a huge issue. And what you must also understand is something that, to a large extent, the world since World War II has been patrolled by the world's oceans have been patrolled by the US. That's one of the reasons that they have all these bases around the world. They've pretty much created a kind of a Pax Americana, the peace of the Americans, which has promoted global trade, which has allowed the world to function the way it functions right now. There's virtually no piracy. I mean, that's why it was so shocking when the Somali pirates came about a little while back. It was such a shocking thing because they hadn't had piracy in a while. Piracy used to be a big thing until the last century or so. And the fact that we don't have it any longer is because of the US power. And how does the US actually do this here? It does this because people are scared of the US. Yes, they have ships everywhere that patrol the oceans and whatnot, but people are afraid of the US and they would not risk getting the US angry at them, and therefore they don't, hijack ships and they don't do all those things. However, if a party like the Houthis get away with it, that fear of the US will diminish, and that would be a problem not just in the Red Sea but elsewhere in the world as well. So take a look at that. Next, we're going to talk about what's happening with China at the moment. Now, the Chinese economy has been slowing down, over the last little while. Look, it's still growing at 5% last year, and expected to grow to close to 5% this year. But the trend is slower. It is facing a lot of demographic issues. We talked about the fact that last week that the population is falling. It's falling not just in terms of the working age population, but actually the actual population is now falling. I think it's about almost 3 million people less this year than they were last year in China. In terms of the number of workers, the workers have started falling basically almost a decade ago. 2014, 2015 was when China hit the peak workforce, and now it's falling down. At the same time, for some reason, they have a lot of unemployed young people as well, showing that just how bad that economy is when you have fewer people looking for jobs, and yet you still don't have the ability to employ all of them. Now, the government has come into play and tried to do something about this. We are seeing stimulus packages coming from the Chinese government. There was a recent thing where they were looking to do about $278 billion worth of, give or take a few billion, worth of stimulus by, directly intervening in the stock market. That had an effect for about an hour. The stock prices went up and then were basically unchanged after an hour later. That shows that the market is pretty skeptical about any kind of intervention to save things. To give you an idea how bad the Chinese stock market has performed over the last 3 years or so, it's fallen by about $6 trillion with a T, $6 trillion. The property sector remains a huge issue. There was a lot of concern, and there still remains a lot of concern about how exactly they're going to burst that bubble properly in order to ensure that the fact that it accounts for about a third of the GDP, accounts for about 2/3 of household wealth. And if you burst that bubble, that's going to be a very painful thing, I think, to handle. And they have tried to do that. That's one of the reasons, one sign of positivity about China is the fact that it's the Chinese government that's burst this bubble. It wasn't just like, the market that says, oh, it's too overdone. The Chinese government stepped in and they created rules and put them in place to actually make sure that we saw this bubble burst. And hopefully it burst before it was too huge a problem as would be in the future. But it remains to be seen what exactly they can do. Now, what we have to say about China is this. Deng Xiaoping, the guy that basically the old guy, I think when he was like in Tiananmen Square times, he was effectively, I think, something silly like the chairman of a chess the club or something. It was his only official thing. But he was effectively the ruler of China, okay? He pretty much ruled China and appointed the next two guys that ruled it, okay? And Xi Jinping, is the first person that's come through the normal, politically kind of stuff around China. Not one of the guys that's been appointed by Deng. Now, what we can say about this is that much of the growth, much of the good things that have happened in China has been through Deng, and Xi basically took it over a incredibly fast-growing economy, a very powerful economy, and he has done not much to grow it. So it's grown, but he's not added much to that, and in fact, he's probably slowed down growth dramatically through some of his policies, like the COVID policies, like his stuff around aggression in Taiwan, like his willingness to go after people like Jack Ma and so on. Now, the thing that you must always remember is this: that Xi Jinping is an old man. He's 70 years old. He's still far younger than Biden and Trump, by the way, who are both almost 80. And by the way, Trump just won the New Hampshire electoral primaries. He's one of the first two. He's only got one person who's running against Nikki Haley, we used to be called Namrata Singh. The chances are of Namrata Singh winning the Republican primary against Donald Trump, I think, is pretty much not there. So it's going to be Trump versus Biden. But why does it not bother me as much? Because the US economy does not depend on Trump and Biden to make its big decisions. Trump and Biden are not telling Amazon what to do or Microsoft what to do. They have some power, but they don't have anywhere near as much power as Xi Jinping has in China. And in China, when he says he doesn't like gaming companies, then suddenly there's a big pullback of gaming companies, like $80 billion worth of market capital lost, and then reversed because he changes his mind when he says basically about COVID, about the lockdown. That economy locks down. They weld people into the houses, and then when he changes his mind, everything just changes. You don't understand that in China is not like a normal country. It's still got that the Chinese Communist Party kind of indoctrination and power in that country. If you ever do any business with a Chinese person that's still in China and so on, and ask them about Xi Jinping, and you'll get the most ridiculously positive answers about him, about how wonderful Xi Jinping is, about how smart he is, if there's any kind of chance that you're being recorded or whatever. These guys are terrified of actually saying anything negative about him. Okay? That kind of power in the hands of a 70-year-old man who's probably going to be in power until he dies is terrifying. Next 20 years, from 70 to 90 is not exactly the best time of your life to think about things. And this is going to be the time when this guy is going to have virtually total control of the Chinese economy. That doesn't augur well for things. At the same time, it's facing huge issues around demographics, around tensions with the US, etc. Also, not a great place to be in. Okay, now the AI segment, Tesla. Tesla came out with results. The results were not great. The stock price, I think, after market fell about 8%. So what's not good about them? Firstly, revenue is basically unchanged, probably due to the fact that they've been spending. So they've been cutting prices dramatically over the last year or so. So they've dramatically decreased pricing on their vehicles. They also came out and talked about the fact that the future looks quite troublesome in terms of demand, etc. And also, they mentioned the fact that unless there's some trade barriers, Chinese car companies are going to come in and eat everybody's lunch because they think the Chinese car companies are just the most powerful stuff out there. In fact, a Chinese car company has already taken off, overtaking Tesla as the #1 electrical vehicle maker in the world. Now, I have Tesla in the AI portfolio. If you watched our stock picks for this year, I actually had Tesla as a stock pick as well. Now, why would I do that when Tesla has all these issues? Because there's no way to justify Tesla's price as a car company. It's not a justifiable thing. Tesla is worth more than the next, I think, 9 car companies combined. Toyota, Volkswagen, GM, Ford, add them all together and you get Tesla in terms of valuation. Tesla doesn't sell a fraction of any of these guys. Forget about all of them together. Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford, GM all sell more vehicles than Tesla does. So how is it worth so much more? It's because you can't value this stuff as a car company. It's a tech company. And what is the tech that it has? It's not cars. It is AI, it is self-driving. And I think that we are on a path right now where there's a significant chance the next year or so we're going to get full self-driving from Tesla. Now, will it be rolled out into the public? Maybe not immediately because of the fact that we're going to see probably legal challenges and so on. Right now, you can have self-driving, but you're going to be able to step in if there's a problem. But I do think that in a little while that's going to change. But I think we're going to have the first real world demonstration of full self-driving this year. Full self-driving is going to be done by Tesla before anybody else. They have just the more data than anybody else. They've had more focus than anybody else, and they have the vehicles that can operate it with the cameras and whatnot better than anybody else. So we're probably going to have full self-driving in the next year or two. Once that does happen, then we can start justifying Tesla's price and fundamentals. And it's not just vehicles that will be impacted by this. Tesla's Optimus robot as well. Once you can navigate a road, you can navigate a house. Once you can move a vehicle around like a highway system or a town or whatever, you can move it around your house and your kitchen, having it wash dishes and do all that kind of stuff. And if you look at the addressable marketplace, Elon Musk has come out and said that by 2040 something, we would expect there to be 1 billion robots in the marketplace. I think that might be an underestimate. If you could buy something that's effectively a full-time maid that could clean your house, wash your dishes, cut your grass or whatever, and it costs you 150,000 rands, how many people are going to be basically buying more than one? Okay, and that's just in in South Africa. Imagine the US and so on. We're going to be seeing, and then talk about what about things like businesses and whatnot. Huge opportunity, but all around AI, all around tech. Nothing much to do with the actual car company itself, because yes, it is a nice car company to have, but there's no way you justify that valuation on that car company. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to speaking to you guys again next week. Cheers.